Welcome to It's No Secret, a podcast for Kiwis who want their money questions answered.
Ready, steady, go.
This podcast will answer the money questions you may or may not have on your mind. We'll talk to real Kiwis and share truths about our own financial lives.
Both the successes and the failures. Because the truth is, there is no secret to achieving financial freedom. Ready when you
Let's
are.
test.
Hello.
Love it, we're back.
Hello and welcome to It's No Secret. I'm Kat.
And I'm Christine.
And today is the first episode of season 2. Welcome back, everyone. We've had quite a break.
Woohoo!
Yes, but very excited to be here. And today on the podcast, we are tackling the question of what do I need to know about my finances in your 20s and 30s? And look, fun fact, we're also going to talk about things that are relevant to you if you're not in those two age brackets. And the reason why we're tackling this topic today is because it's actually Sorted's Money Week in New Zealand this week. So love that. For those guys, well, Christine, do you know what Money Week is? I hope so.
Yes, I do. It is an annual week that Sorted, also the Commission for Financial Capability, runs to start a conversation about money. So it's a chance to highlight and open a conversation around the things that we're doing well, what we do, general kind of celebration.
Absolutely.
Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely. Which I think is really cool because as far as I'm aware, I don't think they have a similar thing in Australia, but I really love the fact that there is, a national body in New Zealand trying to encourage Kiwis to talk about money for a whole week, which is obviously what we are about. So
we will be talking nonstop.
We are talking about it. Look, plot twist to this episode, your life stage and your age group, there's not a whole heap of difference between your 20s and 30s and 40s because ultimately it really depends on where you're at. But the timeline of life is super scary. Often in your early 20s, you're starting your career, you hit your mid-20s, you're learning, you get to your late 20s and you're gaining momentum and maybe starting to think about kids, or you're on a completely different time frame and maybe, you had kids in your early 20s and that's totally okay too. So whilst I guess we've kind of grouped this a little bit into age brackets, it really comes down to life stages and just recognizing the fact that even though, I'm in my, I was going to say mid-30s, but I'm not prepared to say that I'm early 30s.
Yeah, you're early 30s.
I'm in my early 30s. I might be in a very similar life stage to someone that's, in their mid-20s because we have made different choices along the way and that's totally fine. So, Christine, when we were talking about this episode, we really wanted to highlight some of the cool stats and numbers that the CFFC have found out about Kiwis. So you guys might have heard us talk about this before, but the CFFC, which also runs Sorted, they do, I think it's quarterly surveys on financial capability and wellbeing of New Zealanders, which is really important because we start to find out how us as a country are feeling in regards to money, budgeting, debt, all sorts of different things. And it's nice to have, I guess, a little bit of a cross-check to see how am I feeling and how are other Kiwis around me feeling and am I kind of on par? Are there things that I should be thinking about for the group that I'm in? So do you want to run us through some of the interesting stuff that we thought we should share with the good peeps of the pod?
The good peeps of the pod. Love it. Yes, absolutely. So it's really interesting. As Kat said, the CFFC divides everyone that does the survey into 4 groups. And these 4 groups are in difficulty, at risk, fine for now, and secure. And so naturally it's a scale of how well you would rate yourself. So it's a survey. So of course you're kind of doing it based on how you feel.
Yes.
Some interesting stats that we found were almost 40% in the secure category were 65 or older, but it also had the lowest percentage of those under 35 years old.
Secure is the highest category, right? So
Yes.
the highest rating you could give yourself in either financial capability or well-being.
Yes, yeah. So younger people aren't feeling that secure and those that are a little bit older are feeling more secure. And I can imagine there's a whole myriad of reasons for that.
Yep. Particularly, I guess, when you in that group as well, we could also find that over 50% of the people that ranked themselves as being secure were mortgage-free and owned their own home. So naturally that does probably pair with a slightly older age bracket, as you'd expect. And yeah, I guess the other one with that was that group had the highest percentage of individuals whose parents discussed money with them, which I found quite interesting actually, because I would have assumed that if you're 65 and older, which was the highest age group in that category, you didn't talk to your parents about money, right?
Yeah, because it was a taboo topic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that kind of intrigued me a little bit.
They did also say, though, in this study that the older you get, the more financial knowledge you gain. And so I think that translates a lot with that feeling secure, and that as your knowledge increases, when you know more, you can do better, right? So you can get yourself into hopefully a little bit better position.
Yeah.
But that said, everyone's different. So not saying that if you're our age that you don't have great financial knowledge.
Yeah. And I think that is super important to mention, because if you think about the categories in terms of like lowest financial capability and wellbeing to highest, and you've got, as you said, in difficulty, at risk, fine for now, secure, you might kind of assume that they correlate to age brackets, right? Where it's like you're in difficulty when you're younger and trying to establish yourself, then you're kind of at risk, then you get into your 30s and you're sort of fine for now, plodding along, and then I don't know,
kids,
you get this like magical boomer retirement age and all of a sudden you're secure. But that is not how it works, guys.
Yeah.
So, the good thing is that obviously whilst under 35s were the lowest age group in the secure category, there are obviously people that ranked themselves as being secure that were under 35, which is awesome to hear. But the other one that we saw, which was really cool, is fine for now, which is the third highest category, actually had the highest percentage of individuals under 35 years. Which is cool, because we reflected on that this morning, and I was like, I feel like that's me. Like, fine for now.
Me too.
Literally sums up your financial mindset of it's like, I'm not crushing it, but I'm also not failing.
Yeah, like I'm happy with where I'm at, but I could be doing more, or maybe, I'd feel a bit better if I had X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't really have, I feel like I've got quite a few things in order, and I don't really have anything to, I guess, complain about, or that's like immediately at risk or kind of like really stressing me out. I don't feel like I'm in immediate difficulty, but I don't necessarily consider myself secure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And within the fine for now category, they also said they can now, thanks to having a higher income, prioritize focusing on retirement, but their preparedness for retirement is low. So
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. So people are starting to focus on it now, but how prepared are they really? And what, maybe do they know a lot about how to actually get to retirement? Or is it just, okay, we've got this disposable income now that we're earning a little bit more.
We feel fine, but we don't really know what to do with it to make ourselves feel secure.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess as well, there's a lot of association between like retirement and security. So, something to maybe take from that is if you are in that category of feeling like you're fine for now, but you haven't thought about kind of your future and retirement, then maybe doing that sooner and putting some of those steps into place actually kind of ultimately moves you towards the secure category, right? Because you feel like your future is somewhat known. Yeah.
Do you think that as well? I just had a thought. We see getting to retirement as being secure. Like, so we're like, if we can...
You only retire when you're secure.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, the thought of retiring and not being secure. I'm like, it doesn't exist. I'll work till I'm 100 and then I'll die. Like, terrifying.
Exactly.
So
like, but you could retire at 50 if you had, or 40 if you had enough money and were financially secure, right? So those two are 100%. Very interlinked.
The other one that we did want to highlight that I thought was interesting about these categories is, so the people that put themselves into the at-risk bucket when it came to financial well-being, one of the really interesting facts here was that less than half of those people said that their parents or whānau discussed money with them. And I think that that's just really important to highlight because A, it's Money Week, and the whole point of Money Week is to encourage discussion around money with, all sorts of people around you. But also this is pretty much our whole mission of the pod, right? And I have no doubt that there are people listening to this that have children. As you can see, those that were in the secure category had the highest percentage of people whose parents discuss money with them. And then those that were at risk had one of the lowest. So there are benefits to everyone to discussing more around money and helping educate other people in your family.
Definitely.
given that it's money week and there's lots of different things that you can think about in your financial sphere, whether you're 20, 30, 40 or beyond, what we thought we would do today is run through 5 key areas, kind of, I guess, in the order that we would suggest you consider them, because when it comes to finance, whilst there's no one path that suits everyone, there is kind of a rough order that you're meant to tackle things in, right?
So some building blocks. Yeah,
exactly. You can't go from 0 to 100 without skipping the steps along the way. So we're going to run through those. If you're crushing one, like, well done you, first of all, massive kudos. If there are some things that you think you are doing well and then some others that you're doing not so well, I guess, come into this conversation thinking like, you don't have to be crushing all areas of your personal finance all the time. I think sometimes it's important to recognize that these do come in swings and roundabouts. And I certainly know this for us. Like, sometimes I was having this chat with someone last week. Sometimes I feel like there are parts of our financial world that we're doing really well at and then others that we're doing terribly at. So it's not to say that you have to have all 5 of these areas nailed every single time. It's just these are the things that we think you should be thinking about this money week and beyond. So, Christine, what's number 1?
Number 1, drum roll please, is save something. So also in the survey that the CFFC conducted, they found that active saving is the behaviour that has the highest direct contribution or correlation to overall financial well-being. So this basically means how well we see ourselves being a saver has a direct correlation to our financial well-being.
That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge.
Because I feel like if there is one financial behavior that you could focus on in your life and nail that has a high impact on making you feel good about money, it is just making sure that you're saving something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yes, definitely.
So what kind of savings? Does it matter?
Are
all savings equal?
I think the absolute number 1 is emergency fund if you do not have one. So as many of us probably felt during the 2020 and COVID generally, not having that cushion to fall back on can be so stressful and really send our financial well-being rolling down a hill. Yeah, emergency fund is number 1.
How much money do you have in your emergency fund? Have you got, is it where it needs to be?
Yeah. So I was actually stoked when I until I started working in finance, I'd never had an emergency fund before. And once I built, there you go. Fun fact. And then once I built it up, I was so stoked. I was like, finally, I have some money in my bank account that I also don't have to touch. That it can just sit there and make me feel better.
Yeah.
So I have $10,000 and that is, I actually don't know.
That's pretty good for a single, I know that you have a partner, but you know what I mean? Kind of, you guys don't have fully joined finances and you don't have joint assets yet. So as a single person, that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah. And I don't have a mortgage or any debt or anything. So there's the things that could go wrong would be my health or, an accident or car blows up, things like that. It's likely not to be that I have a broken roof or something that I need to repair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about you? How much do you have?
We have quite a bit at the moment. I think from memory, we have $35,000.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which
that's pretty good.
Past me would have been like, oh my God, that's too much money to have in cash. You should invest that money. But current Cat is like, no, this is good. Yeah. The reason I say I don't really know is because it's actually merged into, we have it in the same account as our future family fund for having maternity leave. So that number is higher, and the hardest thing, I guess, at some point when I do go on maternity leave will be having to making sure that we don't spend our emergency savings as well.
Keep it above a certain level.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, if I go back to probably end of 2019, we had, I would say similar to you, maybe sort of $12,000 to $15,000 in our emergency account. And I always felt quite comfortable with that. But then obviously Luke losing his job last year, that changed things. We focused really hard on increasing that emergency savings amount. And then actually recently when we had the chat around should we top it up, we debated do we want 6 months worth of expenses, bare minimum expenses, or do we want 3 months? And we settled on 3 months because we both felt we're both just quite confident. And we're like, we don't need 6 months. We'll sort our shit out. But
funny you should say that actually, because I recently debated decreasing mine because I feel like it's too much, and purely because I know that money is not doing anything in your bank account. And also I guess I'm in a very fortunate position in that we have quite low rent, and so we live with our sister, and so if worse came to worst scenario,
Yes.
and I didn't have anywhere to live, I could just go crawling to her and say, please let us have free rent. And
Have a rental break.
yeah, which is probably not the best perspective to be taking. But.
Yeah. I feel like, though, on the emergency savings thing, it is definitely worthwhile obviously checking in on it to make sure, not super frequently, but at least once a year, make sure that you're comfortable with the level, because a lot of the rule of thumb is around making sure that you have like X number of months worth of expenses. And naturally, as you get paid more, your expenses increase or your lifestyle changes or you get more assets. And I think you've got to kind of keep on top of also increasing your emergency funds in line with other things that you do, right? And for you, if you were to say halve your emergency funds and then 12 months later you guys buy a house, all of a sudden you're trying to pay a mortgage and then significantly increase your emergency savings, which could be quite hard. So
definitely.
Is
there a sort of, I guess, formula that you go through if it's not 3 months of pay? So with your salary, you should have...
What should you do?
Yeah, or if I have a mortgage of this size, then I need to have an emergency fund of this size.
Good question. So I think some people just, if they're focused on mortgage, will set aside your mortgage expenses. So let's say your mortgage a month is like $3,000. They'd put aside 3 months worth of that. For us, though, I'm like, that's a drop in the ocean when it comes to the rest of our expenses. Like, it's not going to cover everything. So I actually, because I run, of course, our lovely budgeting spreadsheet, I duplicated it and then did a separate spreadsheet of like, if a genuine emergency hit and one or both of us was off work, what are all the non-essential things that we would cut out of that budget, which is pretty much what we actually did in 2020. So things like we both put our gym memberships on pause, we canned like all takeaways, we cancelled Netflix, like all that kind of stuff. And then I saved a higher number of months, so like 3 to 4 months worth of our worst case scenario expenses, because I can guarantee you, having been there, if you have an emergency situation and one of you is not working, you're not going to be going out for dinner twice a week.
Yeah.
That sure as shit ain't happening.
Yeah.
You'll be home crying into your spreadsheet, stressing about your life. No, you won't, guys, it's fine. But
goodbye takeaways, hello spreadsheet.
Yeah, so I think, and like we didn't have things like our fund money budgets and stuff when we were down to one income. So I was just a bit realistic of like, we're not going to spend our normal amounts every month should that happen. So yeah, that's how I worked it out, if that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely love it. Cool. Okay, and so number 2 is
debt.
Negative debt.
Guys, we've talked about this before. Not all debt is created equal. So if you have debt, you kind of need to think about it in this order. So all your personal and highest interest rate debts first. So do you have a credit card, a personal loan, a car loan? Typically, I can also add into that, any buy now, pay later schemes like Afterpay, focusing on clearing those first. Then you can look at things like, a mortgage or property loans if you have those, and deciding around, making sure that for any debts you are paying off at least the minimum, but then also a level of repayment that gives you some comfort around when you're going to be debt-free, if that's important to you. You would have noted, and we debated this morning, as to whether or not you should focus on your emergency fund first and your debt second. And I was a firm believer of doing that, because if you don't have an emergency fund and an emergency happens, you're going to debt fund that emergency. And again, I have been there. Used our emergency fund for a non-emergency expense, had no money in our emergency account, had to put our cat through a $6,000 vet bill that is really expensive, that got chucked on a credit card, and that was really hard to basically repay. That credit card haunted us for the next 18 months. So make sure, even if you are saving for an emergency fund, you're still repaying at least the minimums of your debt and not incurring high fees. But I think it's important to focus on both at the same time.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. Number 3, Christine, what
Number
is it?
3 is to make sure that you are enrolled in some type of retirement savings. So in New Zealand, that's KiwiSaver. In Oz, that's a super.
Yes.
Important caveat, contribute at a level that you're happy with. So don't overstretch yourself, but also don't understretch yourself. And so what do we mean by that? Overstretching is, let's say you want to do 10%. If you can't afford to do that, don't do that, because you could get yourself into debt
Yep.
or like look for other ways to compensate for that money that you might need, right?
And also, once that money is in your retirement savings plan, you can't get
take
it
it
out.
out. Yeah.
So it's there until you're 65.
Yeah, exactly. Or you buy a house. On the flip side, don't be complacent and necessarily just default to
Like the
3%.
lowest minimum.
Yeah, with the assumption that that's going to get you to being a millionaire or being a retirement. Because if we look at the stats, it's likely that that is not going to happen if you just settle for the 3% without doing anything outside of that.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. And again, you know, we always love to chuck in some comparisons to Australia, because I know we have some Aussie listeners as well. But for all the Aussies out there, I hope you all know that the super guarantee, which is for the Kiwis, the contribution rate that their employer contributes to super, is now 10% in Australia. But for Kiwis, well, most Kiwis, it's still obviously only the 3%, unless you are in a workforce that provides like a higher employer-employee match, which some do. So it is quite a significant difference. And yeah, as Christine says, you know, you don't necessarily have to save for your retirement inside your retirement savings. There are other ways to save for your future, which we will get to in a second. But don't think that, you know, defaulting to the minimum is necessarily going to get you to where you want to be, and just blindly hope for the best that in 30 years it'll be sweet, because it might not be.
Yeah, definitely. And so on that note, how much do you contribute to KiwiSaver?
Great question. I contribute 3% and Luke currently contributes 0 because he's unemployed. He's really getting a lot of crap this season. It's only episode 1.
Poor Luke.
No, but that is important to note, because this will be the first year where he does not have like an employer contribution. And for those of us that are self-employed in New Zealand or not working, we do know that you can make contributions and also get the government contribution. So that will be something that's important for him and I to make sure we do this year, is contribute the amount to his KiwiSaver so that he gets the $500 from the government. But yes, my personal KiwiSaver is just on 3%. And that's because I knew you were going to ask me that.
I was about to say why.
That's because we are realistically wanting to build retirement savings outside of our KiwiSaver schemes so that we can access them before we're 65. So we're making sure that we're putting investments in place outside of KiwiSaver as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on my side, I contribute 3% as well.
Yes.
Either 3 or 4.
Which
I
is
think it's
interesting.
4,
I want to
actually.
ask you this, because I guess a lot of people that are relying on their KiwiSaver to buy their first home look to increase their contribution rate. So why have you not done that?
That is a great question. So the reason that I don't contribute more to KiwiSaver is because I like to have more control over where I'm having my money go. And also I kind of, in a way, I don't really like any of the KiwiSaver offerings that are out there at the moment. And so, you know, if I obviously think it's necessary to contribute, but it's not my preferred way to invest. And so I am able to take control of whatever excess I have and then divert that to the things that I do like.
Exactly.
I.e. Kernel and
Great index funds.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. On that, obviously we're both investing outside of our KiwiSavers. So point 4 or area 4 is to start looking at other investments. Now, it is worthwhile noting that there's no right or wrong when it comes to what those other investments look like when you're considering something outside of, you know, your savings account or your retirement savings plan. For some people, this might be investment property. For others, it could be a share portfolio or, you know, investing in a business, alternative assets. But whatever it is, the point is to have more than just money in your bank account and a retirement savings working for you. So, and I should also add, to have more than just your house.
Yes, that is one very
if you find yourself,
concentrated asset.
Exactly, as a homeowner.
I'm going to flip this back to you again and ask you, firstly, outside of KiwiSaver or as a whole, how much of your paycheck do you contribute to investing? Like, do you have a percentage?
Great question. Like right now or in a dream world?
I reckon right now and in a dream world.
Okay, so right now we are not making any regular contributions to our investments, but we are making a much higher regular contribution to our savings account. And then I am kind of making like ad hoc lump sums into our investment account. That's not necessarily something that we would have done in the past. So previously we have just had that money come straight from, our pay into our investment account straight away every fortnight. But with our cash flow being quite lumpy at the moment, I just feel a little bit more in control of doing it that way. And then I guess, so, for example, Luke is picking up some ad hoc jobs here and there, and they get paid in lumps typically whenever he gets paid a lump. Some from, a work job, we then decide, do we want that money to go into our savings account or are we going to put it into our investment account? And the reason we haven't also put more into our investment account is because we're thinking about whether or not we can look at buying another property. So we're kind of
nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, stockpiling money in cash at the moment for that. So yeah.
Nice. Cool.
Number 5, and I'm going to kick this one to you, Christine, because I think you would be a good place to start as someone that's in your 20s, is if you have ticked off, 1 to 4, so savings, debt, thinking about your retirement savings and starting other investments, what else can you then do if you're nailing all of those things? And I think it's really about assessing whether you can invest more. So reassessing where you're at and then looking at how you can maximize your situation. So I know you're now a couple of years into investing. Have you done that recently? And how often do you reassess whether or not you can be investing more or saving more or putting more towards your home deposit?
Yeah, cool. Great question. So I would say I do it without looking at my spreadsheet probably every week. I think it's very top of mind at the moment for me to think, okay, well, what can I do to generate some extra income, or how can I decrease my expenses, i.e. buy a coffee machine and stop buying coffees out.
Yes.
And things like that. But there have been some things that along the way, i.e. my Ollie recently got a small pay rise, and so he's now able to contribute more to his investing. So then I sit here, I'm like, oh, I'm competitive. I want to be able to contribute more.
I don't want to be left behind.
Basically.
Yeah.
I have done that slightly. I think I increased it by $50 a week, and I did that by buying less coffees out. That sounds ridiculous, but it does make a difference. That's about $35 a week, and being smarter about how I shop. So really trying to, just how do I change some of those core expenses? And then also recently I've been picked up my camera again. So I'm trying to think, should I do a little bit of photography on the side to bring in some lump sum of money, or
bit of a side hustle?
Yeah. What else can I do? Maybe some babysitting, things like that. That also, I guess, are outside my job to give my mind a break. That is kind of using a different part of my brain.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the benchmarking your salary and then looking towards how do you optimize yourself in your current role to then move towards a raise. But
yeah, because I think that is super important, because whilst you say, there are some quick wins when it comes to reducing your expenses, it only gets you so far in like the generation of wealth or being able to put more towards investments or savings anyway. So whilst we can all try really hard to kind of cut down on the lifestyle side of things, you hit like a lowest point that you can do that, right? And then ultimately you need to work on actually increasing your income either through, frequent benchmarking of your salary or upskilling to get a raise, those sorts of things, or looking at, as you say, alternative streams of income through either like side hustles and other stuff, and then, focusing on that.
So I guess also on that note, something that while I sit here and say, I want to do photography and it's great to pick up these extra streams of income, I also need to remember that like life is about balance. And so if you're then filling all your spare time by trying to generate more income, am I ever going to be able to rest? Yes. So I think there is like really considering the opportunity cost of time, essentially.
Absolutely.
And so then maybe it's not a side hustle where you get paid $10 an hour, but you're able to somehow get paid 50 or whatever, and then you do that less frequently, but it still brings in the amount that it would take for you to do 5 hours work or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love that. Awesome. Well, that wraps up our very special first episode for season 2 and discussion about Money Week. If you guys are doing something that, you're really proud of, either in your personal finances, we'd love to hear it on the Instagram. You can come chat to us at It's No Secret NZ. And as we said at the start, if you feel like you're not crushing all of these things, please don't feel bad. We're not nailing it all the time. As you can see, we've at various points in life relied on credit cards and other things, and it's more about wanting to, I guess, move forward in a positive way and just make some constant, like small improvements, not necessarily drastically overhaul everything, in 1 week. Because whilst you might
flip your life upside down.
and whilst there might be, money week, it's also really hard to achieve all of these things in 1 week. So don't put the pressure on yourselves to do that, team. But yeah, any lasting comments, Christine?
No, I think you wrapped it up perfectly. Is micro actions equal macro outcomes.
Nice. Love it.
Quote of the day.
I need to go think about what my micro actions are going to be. We'll chat to you next week, team.
Catch you later.